Thank you, everybody, and welcome to this morning's webinar as part of the EARMA Digital Series. We have attendees joining at the moment, and we're shortly due to start for 10 o'clock. Thank you for joining us. I see the people are joining thick and fast right now. Once we reach to 10 o'clock, I will explain the format for this morning's session, and we encourage you to participate as much as possible. So I will explain how you can do that. During the session, you will be able to ask questions to our speakers. There is, for those of you who are familiar with Zoom, and for maybe some of you who are not familiar with Zoom, if you check the bar at the bottom of your screen, you will see a questions and answers section, Q&A. And in there, if you click that section, you can then place your question, type it in there, and put it directly to ourselves. The speakers are going to be speaking for the majority of the session, but towards the end, when we have room for questions and answers, we will try and get through as many questions as possible. So for the moment, I would like to hand you over to our moderator today, who is Nick Klassen, who is the Managing Director of EARMA, and he will introduce our speakers. So I hope you have a wonderful time. I hope you enjoy this very interesting session and this discussion, and please try and participate as much as you possibly can. Thank you.
Hello, hi everyone. Nick here. So great that we can set something up again, that we can be in touch with the community. We have had to unfortunately postpone our conference until the end of September, and we were thinking within the EARMA board, within all of EARMA really, what is it that we can do now for our members in these strange times while people are sitting at home? And we thought it would be a very good idea to put up some of the sessions that we would be having at the conference, and we would put them up now already during the conference week. We added a few sessions, like the session today and a session tomorrow. Please, if you have not seen so, we have a website with all of the information available there. And you are joining today this session on leading a university research office in time of disruption. So we have four heads of the research or grants office with us today. They will be talking a little bit about what their experiences have been at this time and how they try to continue the effort, the RMA effort, supporting the PIs, looking at how they're managing their research office. And I will ask them to reflect on how this time has been for them in a bit of a wider context, what they find the important things. I want to welcome you on behalf of all of EARMA, of course, the EARMA board, the standing committees. And as I said, we're quite happy that we can do something. We had been planning so much for the Oslo conference, and it has been with really, really great regret that we had to postpone it. But as you know, everything is being postponed, and the health comes first at this time. We are also very much monitoring the situation on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis. So we are looking at how to roll out everything, all of the events that we have, the conference that we have, and we are taking into account that this situation may go longer than current, may go to the end of the year, or be different 4 years. So that's very much on the top of our minds. With that, I want to introduce you for this session to the speakers. We'll first be hearing from Stefania Grotti, who is the head of the research office at Politecnico di Milano. Then that will be followed by Simon Kerridge, who is the head of the research office at University of Kent, followed by Soile Haverinen, who is the head of the research office at University of Turku, and then to end off, Maryam Hansson Edalat, who is the head of the research or grants office at Stockholm University. We'll not be taking questions immediately. You can type them in. Niall and I will be looking at them. We'll be moderating them. After we have had a 10-minute presentation from each presenter, we'll be moving back to them for notes on what has been said, so back to the panelists, and then we'll be opening the floor for further questions. So without any further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Stefania. So Stefania, please start.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. I just share my screen. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. As Nick introduced me, I'm responsible of the research office of Politecnico di Milano in Italy, and I am very happy to be here to share our experience today. As you know, we are the first universities, first countries in Italy, in Europe, starting with the lockdown. Just a few words about Politecnico di Milano. Politecnico is a very large university in Italy, is a technical university dealing on the first three important topics: engineering, architectures, and design. It's the first university in Italy in the ranking. As you can see, we grow a lot in the last years, for sure, in arts and design and architectures. It's also the first university with the largest numbers of H2020 European projects granted. And we are at the 12 European levels with the numbers of projects granted. We manage as research office, we are the central office with 16 people, and we manage also commercial contract. We support also all the department, we have 12 departments in dealing with the research contract. Some few words about me, just to show you my experience. I started 20 years ago at Politecnico di Milano, first of all managing the incubators, and then now for the last 13 years I manage the research units. In the last years, I were a lot involved at European level in different networks, and I chaired the advisory board of the Crowd LX network in the last 4 years, and I am also at international level involved in the Encura US network. Then, just a few words about the Italy situation. Italy has a very, very strong lockdown. We are at the moment in our 9th week of lockdown. I think that it's very important. You can then understand the difference between our country and the other country in Europe, because we start first. Then the first 2 weeks, we had only online sessions for students and the school were closed, but we still continue to work at the office. And the first lockdown arrived on the 11th of March. Then we start working from home. And after 2 weeks, then a very, very strong lockdown, for sure for our region, because Milano is in the Lombardy region in the north of Italy, and just you can show on the pictures how many sick people we have in our region. I just took this number from yesterday. Then for us it means not go out from home, no sports, no walk, just around 200 meters from home if you have a dog, no permission absolutely to move from the city and not to from a region to another region. Now we start to be a little positive, because probably on Sunday we will have the news about the opening of the region. We have 20 regions in Italy, then we don't know exactly if our region probably will not be the first, but we don't know. But we will start to reopen the second phases. We call that the phase 2 until the June 29, because they say that probably only at the end of June we will have 0 people with new sick people. And the school, we know that, will open only in September. Then also our students at the university will come back only in September. Then what's happened on the 2 first weeks of the COVID? It was not easy to understand. The difficulty to understand what's happened, also be prepared for this situation. Not all the colleagues were able to work remotely. We don't have clear indication, because we were the first example in Europe then to understand what we can do exactly. The mood, also manage the mood of the colleagues up and down, do the uncertainty. It was very difficult at European level for us, because immediately we received so many cancellation, a very big lack of understanding at European level. No, the deadline were not postponed, and the difficulty to explain our position. That was for us very, very difficult. Then my first activity were to organize immediately the office and understand what we can do if in the future we had to stay everybody at home. As you remember, we received the communication only in the evening. Then each day could be the last day in the office. Then we were fortunately well prepared. We immediately bought all the computers for everybody, be ready to have all the facilities to work at home. What's happened now? How is the situation now after 2 months very, very strong lockdown. First of all, it's manage, as it's my job, then manage the colleagues, then every day contact them. We manage different activities in our office because we manage the pre, the post awards, but also we start 4 years ago to be very, very involved in the research development activity. That means talent development, that means strategies, research strategies, directly with the vice rectors for all the university, a lot of international strategies. Then I travel a lot, I be involved in all the international networks, conferences. Then it's not easy to manage everything, but we try to be focused on each activities of everybody. And now you can imagine a strong lockdown, what means on the mood also of the people, because it depends if you manage families at home, you have kids, if you have family that maybe could be have problems, sick problems, healthy problems, and it's also people living alone in Milano because the family is in another region and you can absolutely not join your family. Then that it's also very hard because you can absolutely see the up and down mood of some colleagues. It is the mobility now, also manage the mobility of all the PhD, the postdoc for the futures, because we launch a very big masterclass on Marie Curie masterclass, and at the moment we don't receive very few applications. Then we understand for the future that will be very difficult. Then probably the new PhD students, postdocs, attract new talent from abroad will be very difficult in the next years. We need to encourage and continue to work on international opportunity. We are still working to sign new agreement at international level with some university that it's very important for our futures, but we need to understand also we can optimize this process in the future because we can continue to work maybe for 1 year in the same way that we did in the past. What is very, very important is also maintaining a very high level of talent development for the PhD, the postdoc, and the professor researchers, then offer them a lot of webinars, workshops, help them to increase the CV paths, organize a lot of activity in order to support them. We also have a very strong groups in the office working on COVID calls because we manage a lot of activities. On these emergencies, we have 2 big laboratories that reconvert the activities, the chemistry laboratories and the aerospace laboratories. For example, they produce alcohol for all the regions and the hospitals, and we test all the masks because you know that so many companies reconvert their activities, and we test for them the mask for free. The community help us on that, but it is a way also to promote and to be there to demonstrate that Politecnico is there to support also the communities, and it's supporting the new activity that we can develop in the future. We hope that in the next week, maybe in 2 weeks, we will open again the labs. That was a very big problem, also close the labs, and then be able to again develop the research activities and give the opportunity to the young postdoc to support and start again with the activities in the research labs. Then what's happened then after the summers? Because for us it will be we hope a new normality. We need to have new objective. Then we reschedule all the activities for September's, October's. Yeah, all the activity that we had planned here during the spring. We are waiting, but I think it's everybody is waiting the transition for Horizon 2020 to Horizon Europe. What's happened? Are we able to participate to some meetings in Brussels? We are waiting to understand what we can do to prepare better our university to be ready for Horizon Europe. We need to increase our visibility at international level for sure. That it's also our job, not only the international office for students to attract students, but also as develop and promote our research in the best way. For sure, the networks like EARMA can help us in that way to increase our collaboration or to B2B collaboration at European and worldwide level. we have for sure, we need to involve better the university. Our 1/3 of our income in the universities is coming from the research, and more of the 50% of our grant coming from companies. Then we need to continue to work very closely with these companies, but we don't know what's happened with companies in the next year. Are they able to give contracts and ask to the university to support them in the development of innovative research? We don't know absolutely what happens. And for sure then need to explore new opportunities coming from this emergency. But I think at the moment it's a little too early to understand exactly what we can do and how we will deal our research activities and which kind of support we can offer there. For sure, as research office, we have to support and adapt our support to each new activity that we have to deal. Thank you very much for your listening, and I am available for all the questions here during the session also. So please be in contact me after without problem. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you so much, Stefania. One of the things that Stefania said, and interesting there also, is to look at the COVID funding opportunities. We will actually be doing a session on this tomorrow. Stefania is also involved in the platform, as are many EARMA members as well, of the crowd helix around COVID. So we have a session on that tomorrow morning, also at starting at 10. Then we move to the UK to Simon Kerridge to Kent. So Simon, please take it away.
And I also remember to unmute myself, which I'm quite happy about. Okay, great. So hopefully people can see my screen, and I will also, like Stefania did, set a little alarm, so I'll try not to overrun by too much. Okay. The national context in the UK then, we've been on lockdown for 4 weeks now, and I've been working from home for 5. We've had another 3 weeks just announced, so it looks like we're going to be mirroring Italy, following that route. We're allowed 1 trip out to the shops per week. I'm not quite sure what you do then, because we have a milk shortage, and so you have to go more often for the milk, but that's roughly what you're supposed to do. And you're allowed an hour's exercise a day, so it includes dog walking, which is good. This was me on day 1 when we had a bit of snow. We also have a furlough scheme, which I'll talk about later on. And of course, we've got a lot of new funding calls coming in, and lots of other processes are delayed. So just to give you an idea, this is the UK context in terms of number of cases and so on. So you've got a cumulative graph on the left-hand side and a daily graph on the right-hand side. And the purple, the big line, is the number of cases, and the red line is unfortunately the number of deaths. You can see the blue part, which is when the university closed, sorry, the blue arrow, and the yellow arrow, which is when the lockdown began on the 23rd of March. So we still have a long way to go. Potentially the good thing is, if you're looking at the purple graph on the right hand side, it looks like the peak may be over. This is hopefully where we are. So a little bit about the university, for those of you who don't know. That strange bit on the top left hand there is the UK, and that's where we're mainly based in Canterbury, but we have centres throughout the UK, in the southeast, in Medway and Tonbridge, but we also have presence in Brussels, Paris, Athens and Rome, and I'm pretty sure most people know where all of those are. There we have a happy student at graduation. That's not happening this year, and there's where I'm sitting at the moment, the red blob of Canterbury. I had to say a little bit about myself, so I'll keep it short. You can read all of that stuff. That is what I look like in my dreams. That is what I look like potentially in reality. That's what those of you who don't have me on your screen think I look like. This is the photograph that I normally use, which is me at work, and this is the photograph of me at work at the moment, at work, i.e. at home. I think I look a little bit thinner, a little bit more gaunt maybe. My hair looks just about as bad as it normally does. Of course, no hair cutting going on. So, working from home then. What was the good thing about Brexit? The good thing about Brexit was that we expected lots of problems on the A2 near Dover, which is where I'm based in Canterbury in the southeast, with lots of trucks being stopped for 3 weeks, delivering stuff, all the border problems. So last year we did a Brexit planning, what would happen if people couldn't get to work. So yes, we actually planned for not being able to be at work. So thank you, Brexit. I knew there was an upside. So what that means is all my staff have portables. We tested all the various using the systems from home. There were a couple of IT systems which didn't work from home. So you see the pinging there, which is the process of moving a project proposal into a project in our research information management system. So yeah, we had a few tests there which worked really well. I am lucky because I have a desk space, i.e. a spare room, and apart from my wife walking in occasionally, sometimes bringing me a cup of coffee, then it's not a bad working place at all. But lots of people are in different situations. People with young kids, I have some single parents with kids, and they're just not able to work at all, basically. And of course, you get the advantage, for example, of having therapy dogs. So it keeps you a little bit sane and doing that walking. We had Microsoft Teams rolled out. We're using Skype a lot, Zoom a lot, Google shared documents. Research services, which I look after, we were supposed to have a night out on the 3rd of April, but we had a night in and somebody organized a quiz, and that was great. And we're doing that again this Friday. So again, that was something I was recommending, is doing some social things with your people at work as well. The university also decided over the Easter 2 weeks, so before and after Easter, as well as the Friday and Monday, which would get off, to give us an additional 2 days off, just because virtual working, when you're not used to it, is very tiring, being at the screen all the time and not remembering to walk around and so on. So what about the researchers? Well, I mean, Stefania's really spoken about these things. We have some slightly strange things to deal with. We have a shared school of pharmacy shared with another university. It's on a campus, but a different university shut down on different days. We're treating things like the Christmas period. So people have to go in to make sure that all the liquid nitrogen is topped up and so on. But other than that, nobody is in. Apart from, of course, those researchers working on COVID projects, and we have some of those, so their labs are open for them. And it's a very complicated situation. Everyone, I'm sure, has the same. We're having to deal with, it seems to be everything on a case-by-case basis. We have some problems with a Marie Curie researcher who went home to visit his family in India and now able not to come back. So technically not eligible to work, even if he could work, because he's outside the European Union. So all sorts of little issues like that. And as I mentioned, you have to really remember about the differential effects of working from home on different members of your team and on different researchers. So most of them are now teaching online for the first time, and I'm sure they're spending a lot of time trying to get to grips with that. So research output is almost certainly going to be down. On the other hand, we have some researchers who aren't working because they're unable to work. So those research assistants are actually writing project proposals. So as an office, we're dealing perhaps with more junior staff putting together project proposals than the normal people we deal with. Of course, lots of conferences, and for the UK, those who know about it, we have a multi-annual exercise called the Research Excellence Framework, the REF, which every 6 years or so assesses all the research and then gives us funding for the following 6 years. So that's worth about 100 million euros to the University of Kent, so it's quite a big deal. We have a delay on that over at least 4 months. We don't yet know what that delay is. And so there's a lot of preparations going into that. And we just don't know what we're doing. It's just a small little issue. I mentioned proposals. There are lots of extension deadlines. Quick shout out for the EARMA virtual event grant, the VEG proposals. Deadline at the end of this week. Get your applications in. Well, of course, we might extend it. You don't know, but get yours in by the 24th of April. We've also had some relaxation on sign-off. So some proposals require university sign-off, but now emails appear to be okay rather than using the electronic systems when people are unable to access them. Thinking about issues with projects, do you delay the start of a project? We're allowed to have no cost extensions, and it's all very complicated by this scheme we have in the UK, this furlough scheme, where the government will pay 80% of the salary of anybody who is employed by a non-publicly funded source. So the university is publicly funded, but some of our projects aren't. So if we're doing a research project with Huawei, for example, then if that person is unable to work because they need to be in the labs and they can't be, then the government will pay us 80% of that researcher's salary. What do we do about the other 20%? Well, the university is committed to pay that, so it costs us more. But what do we do about the publicly funded ones? The research councils are potentially providing us with information about what they're going to decide to do. It always seems to be that information is coming next week, and we haven't yet had any firm agreement of what we're supposed to do with projects. Should we be pausing them? Will they give us additional funding? All sorts of issues. I put a couple of links in there about potential things you might want to think about. A couple of blogs for issues to do with funding and dealing with staff and working from home. So what about the research office of the future? Well, I think that this could well be the research office of the future. This is my kitchen and my 4 dogs, say 2 of them therapy dogs, keeping me sane. The one thing we have learned is that the IT infrastructure is incredibly crucial. We have 3 deans of research in our different faculties. One of them, she lives, it must be in a small village somewhere with very bad Wi-Fi, no mobile phone signal. Occasionally we can see her on a video call and you can sometimes hear what she's saying. It just makes it incredibly difficult. Thinking about all the issues to do with virtual working and being flexible, for people who like to work 9 to 5, that's probably just not possible anymore. So how do you decide what periods of the day you're going to work in, and how do you keep things separate, or can we not keep things separate anymore? And having integrated IT systems, for me the biggest issue is keeping that sense of team. So I speak to my senior leaders. It used to be every day, we now do it every other day, just to update on things that are happening. So for the future, more meetings or less meetings? Certainly less travel. Even when we get back to normal, I think we will be traveling less. Potentially more virtual conferences, and probably more collaboration. And I think my time is up.
Okay, thank you, Simon. And thank you for that lovely extra picture. Indeed, Simon and Stefania have kept very well to time. Thank you for that. It's making my job extremely easy in this case. With that, I'd like to move it to Finland, to Turku, to Soile. And Soile, you...
Yes, from
super.
Turku, where the sun is shining, but no people around, because we have been in a lockdown from the middle of March, and it seems it will stop in the middle of May, and maybe we will get back to normal step by step, but that is not known as yet. All people who can are working from home. All restaurants, libraries, and so on are closed, and gatherings of over 10 people are forbidden. And as there are most cases of corona in Helsinki metropolitan area, it was isolated for a while, for 3 weeks, from the rest of Finland. And elderly people should avoid exposure and stay at home. I just checked that we have in Finland now about 4,000 cases of corona and 140 deaths. What's happening at our university? We have switched to working from home. All university facilities are closed, only critical functions allowed at the moment. All contact teaching cancelled until end of May. And for example, entrance exams will be replaced by some other procedures this spring. What was good is that we got in a speedy way now in place electronic document signing system, which is good when we are working from home. And I think or feel that the remote teaching load is quite heavy and time consuming now for our teachers and researchers, who should also try to research and also write proposals. We have a common electronic platform now for the whole community to discuss different kinds of issues on remote working and so on. What is being done, what kind of research is being done related to COVID at the moment? We are involved in a large international effort to fight against coronavirus using especially open science methods, sharing results and information and tools very openly. We have developed a digital toolbox for parents who supports children suffering from corona anxiety, and also published a list of researches dealing with coronavirus and phenomena related to it for our community around the University of Turku, if they need to contact anyone. The University of Turku is now 100 years young, but we have to remember that the first university in Finland was founded in Turku, 1640, the university which later on became University of Helsinki. We have about 20,000 students, 3,500 personnel, of which about 2,000 are researchers and or teachers, 7 faculties, and we are ranked the 3rd best university in Finland after Helsinki and Aalto, and doing quite well in nursing sciences and dentistry. Our funding consists of basic funding from the Ministry of Education and Culture, and about 40% of the budget is external funding, of which research funding is about 65 million euros. I am the head of research, a unit called research funding at this university with a staff of 20 persons, and I have been around a very long time in research management and administration at this university. And the last 10 years I've been involved in management and leadership tasks. But in my previous life, I was a secondary school teacher in biology and geography. I'm also very active in the National Association for Research Managers and Administrators, and also the project manager of the National Funding Opportunities database we have in Finland called Aurora, which is used by all universities in Finland. The research services are organized into 6 sister units, 6 closely working units, and I'm responsible for the research funding unit with pre-award and project management services. Then we have other units dealing with, for example, open science, PhD programs, invention process, research contracts, and strategic partnerships. And how about managing the unit during these times? I think it's all about communication. You have to be very open and swift with information and facts, and also discuss them with your unit. Also be listening to them, and also be available for them as much as possible. And of course, keeping up the team spirit, motivating people, solving problems, being there. For example, we have a daily virtual coffee break, and that's a good moment to assess the spirits and the moods and what's going on, how everybody is feeling. The leap into working at home wasn't that difficult, because our team members are normally scattered around campus, and we use remote working tools and practices already daily, so that was not that difficult. At the moment, a lot of effort is going into supporting our researchers with a lot of different kinds of national and international COVID funding calls, which have come with short notice and with deadlines coming up very fast. I've been discussing some challenges with my team. The first one, the ergonomics. You have to think about not sitting too much during the day when you're sitting there in your kitchen. There's a risk that you're working two long days, because there's no transfer between work and home, so you can work anytime, basically. And the thing that you are being home all the time with all the family can be quite challenging and stressful. You have to combine the work and family family life and also be tutoring, for example, tutoring your small children who are learning from home. Communication with researchers, I can say that the first lockdown week was very, very quiet. And I think it's due to them switching to the remote teaching mode and preparing for closing of facilities and other things. But after that, things ramped up, and we have from before already a joint service email address, and we get a lot of contacts to that. So that's a contact point for our researchers. And of course, physical meetings are not allowed, so it's all, we use alternative methods there. But we have found, for example, that when we have lengthy email conversations with the researchers about, for example, developing a proposal, funding proposal, it should be followed up with phone calls to ensure that everything is all right, that we have understood everything clearly. And researchers need support for all the COVID calls at the moment. So what is going to happen in the future? Are we going to take something with us when we return to work eventually? We have seen that the remote working systems, practices, and the whole thing works very well. So I think that in the future, in the near future, we will have more and systematic remote working, and the barrier between normal and remote work will diminish. Maybe also the need for physical space will diminish with this, and the planning of facilities will change. Maybe we need other kinds of spaces for work in the future. I think there will maybe be more virtual meetings than normally when we are back to work. And also it will be very normal also to join physical meetings virtually. And maybe less travel, because we know now that the virtual meetings and workshops can function very, very well, but we need also the physical encounters. And when we meet again, I think it will be all the more appreciated. Thank you very much. And here's my email address, and please contact me if you have any questions afterwards.
Thank you, Soile. I saw there also a question on if the PowerPoint presentations would be available. Yes, that will be the case, and even also we are recording the session and we will be releasing it possibly after a bit of time of editing. So that will come onto the website or will be linked to the website. And from Soile's online coffee breaks, we move to the land of Fika. We move to Maryam in Stockholm.
Hello, everybody. Greetings from Sweden. Actually, not Stockholm, but a small city outside of Stockholm in Knivsta, as I'm working from home right now. A bit about Stockholm University is the largest basic research university, so we deal a lot with fundamental research questions. We are also a large higher education in terms of the number of students. 10% of all the students in Sweden study at Stockholm University. You see a little bit of the numbers. We have a large governmental funding, 65%, and external funding is partly also governmental, but it's more as everybody else knows, it's external funding that you have to apply for funding, basically. As you see, the number of international students is smaller, 3,000 international students that in this case we needed to take care of and handle. Not my office, but Stockholm University as a university. Coming to the current situation in Sweden, as many of you may have heard, Sweden has taken its own way in this Corona time. It's low-scale lockdown. It means that you can go to work if it's possible, and if you need to be there. The schools, the primary schools are open, the daycares are open, so you can have your kids in school. However, high schools and universities had to turn to digital teaching. Since 1 month ago, my office started to work from home around that time, maybe a couple of days earlier than it was recommended. We don't have policemen in our streets telling us not to be outside. It's completely voluntary. Everything is recommended. Social distancing is recommended. People do respect, however, these things. If you go to the central train station in Stockholm, you don't see many people there. But the idea is to keep the lockdown a little bit more long term. So the situation is here, I think, for a while. At university, with the managers, we talk about until summer vacations, but some people even think about autumn and how it will turn out there. As you know, few things that I have been reflecting during this time, of course, digitalization is there. We had to move pretty fast, but at the same time, there are some challenges around this, IT security, and also I think many other colleagues also mentioned the availability of the internet and how good your broadband is important in this time. We see also a bit of polarization, I would say. So in Sweden, you see half of the cases, COVID-19 cases are in Stockholm. So you see a bit of polarization in the country. Some people from the other parts of Sweden, they don't want people from Stockholm to come there to visit. At the same time, as Stefania was saying, you know, what is happening to international collaboration and how we reacted to the case of Italy and Spain. But at the same time, you see a lot of solidarity. At one point, I can say that I was actually working at our office and I saw the hand sanitizers disappeared from our bathrooms and nobody knew why. Shortly after, we realized that we have received a call from hospital saying that they are in need of hand sanitizer. So everything from the university was moved to the hospitals, and our chemists started to dilute the hand sanitizers for the hospitals, and they've been doing that ever since, with a lot of collaboration with other countries or other companies and museums even. So that was actually fantastic to see. We see, of course, right now, it started with less mobility, less traveling. Now we don't see any traveling at all. It has, of course, a positive effect on climate footprinting. And some people say maybe we don't need to go back to everything that we used to do. Maybe we need to think again how we are working, how we are living our lives. Economic recession is here in Sweden, as in many other countries. You see the restaurants are affected, shops are affected, but also companies, many companies, car companies and other companies are affected. The government is turning a lot to universities, asking for innovations, asking for solutions. So that's the positive part of this. You see research is moving up in the decision-making agenda, I would say. We talk a lot about misinformation and trust. There is a big trust in Sweden to authorities, what they say, and the recommendations. It's important at the same time that you know, the social media, whatever you see there, do not use that without knowing the source that was sent. You have maybe you have heard in US, Sweden is always a bit getting a kick from President Trump. The term herd immunization is used, and nowadays they talk about Sweden as you know, I don't know. So this is really important. I really we talk a lot about, you know, don't use the information you don't know the source for. You have this expression in English, every cloud has its silver lining, and I would say the silver lining of this crisis is that you see more research in focus. These are a few number of R-stars that I knew before, but now they are everywhere in the news. Tom Britton, as you see, he's a professor in mathematics. He's predicting a lot around modeling the how this pandemic is working in Stockholm, and when we will have this herd immunization. They say maybe at the end of May we will be there in Stockholm. However, Sweden is a big country in area. How it will work towards other regions, it still remains to see. This is my office, research support office. Just a few days before the lockdown, we were having a planning day and a dinner outside. And you see the picture of, I think this was from last Monday. This is how we meet nowadays. It's been 4 weeks and it's hard to know exactly how it will be affected, our work. I guess we need to follow this up and reflect on it. I think it's too easy to say how it will happen afterwards. A bit about the office, research funding and infrastructure, research integrity and ethics. We also have a group of people working with global engagement and international activities. There we see the first two weeks they were canceling meetings and trying to reschedule meetings and activities. It's been difficult. But I'm also in the middle of reorganization, so soon we will also have innovation and engagement, public engagement support in my office. So that's also challenging from my side. A bit about other challenges that we see in our daily work. We see new funding possibilities, private initiatives, around 5 million euros on research in life science. We also see a Swedish Research Council receiving more money, about 10 million euros on COVID-19 research. We also see flexibility even from European Commission about how the projects are dealt with, when to start, and so on. So that's really positive, and I hope that we can see this flexibility as a good thing in the future from the funding agency's point of view. Adoption to digital teaching is taking time and a lot of energy. It's not always easy. I've heard of researchers saying that they may not want to be in picture when they have digital teaching because they work with sensitive type of research in gender issues or other things that they feel like, you know, having their face post in internet it's not what they really wanted. They are a little bit skeptical around it. Of course, the international mobility, how are we going to deal with the people that are in Sweden with international background? We have PhD students that are worried when they can go home, and at the same time, they don't want to, you know, leave their education here in Sweden. So how is working from home? I asked some of my colleagues to give me some feedback. They say Zoom meetings are exhausting. I can say that I feel the same thing. It's tiring. Some people say it's actually has a positive effect. They don't need to commute. It saves time. I have a few people saying that they miss their colleagues, the interactions, they physically, when you're physically in your office, you have other type of interaction than if you have to work from home. Some people say it's good for their family life. They don't have to run from work. They can plan their working a bit better. There are other people saying that home office is good. They have everything they need. Some people, they don't. I have offered everybody to come and pick their office chairs and screens, large screens. We already had laptops and mobile phones, so that was not a big deal. But big screen is it's not so bad to have, or a good chair to sit on. Meetings need more following up. It's also a bit something that we see more work, basically. And sometimes I'll tell people that they have to switch their computers off. You cannot work from breakfast to late in the evening. You need to make sure that you have, you can do other things. Just because everything is, digital doesn't mean that you have to work all the time. From my perspective, efficiency in the long run, I would say, would be affected. It's always nice to have meetings in person and hear people's voice. Working environment is the responsibility of working environment is the manager's responsibility in Sweden. So if you're having both mental issues or even physical issues, it's my responsibility. It's harder to pick these things up when you don't see each other. Communication, of course. How do we communicate? I've seen a couple of cases where jokes has not been perceived well. So you have to think about it. What you say. Simon is of course reacting to that. Motivation, how to keep things working, how to make sure that we are not, because of this crisis and everything that you hear in the news, we have to keep on working. We have to see that this has an end. We need to see the end of this dark tunnel, I guess. But again, what are we good at? The research managers, the best, one of the best qualities, I would say, is adaptation. We always adapt to new situations. The funders change their rules, and the deadlines and so on. We know how to adapt. And of course, finding solutions when you have a new reality to face. And with that, we always deliver services, and I don't think it's different now. We manage to deliver our services to the researchers, and I guess we will do that. And I'll thank you, everybody, with a few pictures of the 4 seasons of the campus. It used to be a lot of people working and a lot of students in the campus. It's sad to see it right now empty, but I hope we get back to it soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Maryam, and such a lovely campus. Looking at the hour also, we're going to run over for sure. We'll try to get first to some questions from the panelists. So the panelists to reflect on what has been said and add some things there, maybe ask a question to their fellow panelists before moving over to the actual questions. I'd like to add also that this is the first digital session EARMA has done. We'll do one tomorrow also at 10, as I said already, on possible COVID funding opportunities and what CrowdHelix and academic partners have done there. And then next week we have 6 additional sessions, of which 5 are fully open. 1 is for EARMA standing committees, and one of the highlights there is the presentation by Anna Panagopoulou from the European Commission, who is director there and who will be talking about the implementation of Horizon Europe. So with that, I'd like to invite Stefania to shortly comment on what she has heard, maybe ask another question to the panelists or reflect what she thinks is an important issue.
Thank you, Nick. Yes, I would like to do some comments because I think session like this one are very, very important for us. Also, like the conferences, like all the webinars, the working groups, our job as research manager, research advisor, it's very important to share experience with other colleagues abroad, at national level, inside the office, outside, and we can only learn from the others and then share the best practice. The experience are extremely important. We try to manage, everybody is trying to manage in the best way in these days the activities. We can for sure learn tips, input from everybody. I think as research manager of an office, you have also to try to do as spontaneously, try to understand. We try to be a little psychologist, try to understand also the mood of our colleagues. We can have small offices, big offices, that's not the problem. And then in that way, I would try to answer to two questions that I just saw online. I think it's very important to try to do our best, manage in the best way the office, and try to be efficient. I receive very strong, clear indication from our rector, vice rectors. He's very engaged. He's there every day in the office, and he tried to ask us to maintain the same high level. It's not easy with everybody, but some of you say that maybe it's good to switch off the computer in the morning, in the evening. I give a lot of freedom to my colleagues because it's depend on your family with small kids, big kids. For myself, I check the email and answer all the email during the breakfast because I took the breakfast alone very early. And after the dinner, because I have also to stay a little with my daughters, and because I spend my days on not Skype, we used Microsoft Teams. It's very important also for the colleagues to stay in touch. Then I organize the small groups. It depends on pre-award, post-award activities. And we were very motivated to maintain the same high level of efficiency of our activities. We had important deadline just in these days, COVID deadline at national level, and it was it was a problem in the beginning. Are we able to upload all the calls on the tools from home? Yes, I can sign everything with my phone. I sign digital all the documentation. We can upload everything from home. Then we can also upload during the night, during the day. Some professors prefer to work during the night. Then I think that it's very useful for the future. Plan to be a little more flexible because we have fixed hours in our office, and maybe, probably in the future, in the next months, we will be asked to work Saturday, Sunday in the evening, some in the morning, some in the afternoon. We don't know what's happened exactly, but I think the flexibility is very, very important, and try to understand the needs of everybody. Then it's not every day positive or easy, sorry, because someday I have also my a little down mood, but I try to do my best, and I need to be there. I need, as the office, to demonstrate that I be there, but I travel a lot normally, and then it's the same. I try to manage the office not from distance, with a distance, but in the same way I am there, give an answer immediately. Just now I just answered to some question to my colleagues, and then multitasking. We need to do our best what we can do. Okay, that is my personal opinion. Thank you.
Super. Stefania, have you happened to have anybody who, a new colleague, or were you planning on hiring somebody and postponed it, or?
Yeah, I'm waiting for a new colleague. She needed to start in March, but the other office, she moved from another office, and then the other office need to hire these new people to replace him and her. And then at the moment, I decided to postpone, maybe in June or maybe after the summers. No, it was not so urgent for us. We tried to manage the new activity that we plan to do with her by ourselves directly in the office. Just a question also that I saw, it's a link, but maybe other can give better answers than me. It's if new PhD postdoc need to start in September, for example, we decide as university, is not clear at the moment, but to start with them from other countries. We have a lot of people from Asia, and then they will start online. It's because it's a problem. It's also an attractivity. Maybe 30%, normally 30% of our PhD come from abroad, and maybe we will have less students. We don't know. Then try to do our best to maintain them online. Just in this day, we have the open days for the new students, for the school students online. Then we need to find new ways to work, and I think our job is really important to help. Thank you.
Okay, super. Thank you, Stefania. You need to look out with humor. Simon, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm not going to tell you a joke because it might be misunderstood. Yeah, okay, so I just to reiterate, I agree with, I think, everything that Stefania said there. And I wanted to highlight something that Maryam brought out, which was the flexibility, because there's one thing about research managers and administrators is that we are flexible. We do lots of different things all of the time, and I think that that's the crucial thing that we need at the moment, because it's new and every situation is different. You're having to think on your feet all of the time. We're definitely going to need some humor though, because for me going forward, you see estimates of universities will be losing between 15 and 30% of their income, depending on the country and the mix and so on, because of overseas students not paying fees, research going down and so on. So I don't think there are many universities that can lose that amount of money without losing a lot of staff. So there's going to be a lot of change going forward. There are a lot of talk in the UK about potential mergers of universities. So I think the landscape of the university sector, the research sector, might change quite a lot, but I think the landscape of the world is going to change quite a lot. There are so many businesses that have gone out of business in the UK already, and okay, you've got government backfill, but we're going to go into a huge recession. Sorry, did you want a joke? I wasn't sure. What can I say, right?
Yeah, I wasn't particularly looking for one, but thanks, Simon. You can that you're always happy to provide one. Very interesting stuff. I'd like to move then to Soile for her comments and remarks.
Also thinking about the flexibility which Maryam brought up, and that's really true for our profession, of course, for many others, because we have had to be flexible all the time, because the calls and instruments and research, everything changes all the time. So that's something that we have inside of us already. And another thing that is very important at this time is resilience, to just cope with everything which is coming, and we don't know about the future yet. So that is also something very, very important to keep in mind. And I was thinking about a question to Stefania. What do you think about how we are going to work in the future? What kind of changes will we have in our working life, in our culture?
Should I answer yes now, Nick? Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank
Please
you.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
then I take also the opportunity to answer to Soile and then to Esther to a question about efficiency. I think we need absolutely a little to go out, to start to be in the office, because it's more easier sometimes to work there. But we can absolutely now manage the meetings online. It could be positive to have different hours, also different time hours in the office, because we travel a lot. For example, sometimes we traveled in the past, but we arrive very late in the evening. Be in the office at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning is not easy. And sometimes for people, I see that for myself, it's easier working during the night. For the other people, it's very easy. It's easier working very early in the morning. Then I think we need more flexibility, and the efficiency we can absolutely manage from home. Esther asked that. I travel a lot in the past. I spent 2 weeks per month abroad to promote the research activities, and you can be there. We have a common email account in the office, and we have a lot of email, 400, 500 emails per day to read as office. But we check every email. Then immediately everybody knows exactly which is the right answer, who answered to a questions. And then we need to be very quickly, okay? But it's a new way to work. I think it was very important for some of our colleagues to discover that they can work also from home, from in smart working. We start also to give the opportunity to have a more flexible activities hours. I check my office from everywhere when I travel. I answer to all the requests, the emails. Yeah, it's very time consuming for me, but I am positive in that way. I think we can do everything. I'm happy now that we just were able to upload and answer to call in 2 weeks. Normally we take months and months to prepare a very big call, but we can also do a lot, adapt to the situation. And I am very lucky because I have a very engaged team. They work very closely and they help each other. I think that it's important, that it's also my job more to be there too. I don't do everything, but they are very expert on that. I think it's your role to demonstrate, to be there, to not physically, it's not in the same room, but they can call me and I answer every time. I think it's important. It's my way to work. Thank you.
Okay, super. Thank you, Stefania. I'll bundle 2 questions, and they were addressed partly at Soile. Soile, you mentioned also meeting with the team, and I think everybody mentioned meetings, that it's important to stay in touch. Do you feel that people like these, and are they always attending, or are some skipping a lot, or are you only having part of the office? How has that experience been for you?
The invitation is open for everybody, but not everybody can participate daily because there are other meetings or something. But I feel that everybody who can joins, and it's in a way an important point of the day to see all the others or the ones who are there, and just chat maybe about work, but also about other things, about how it's going on. Some in the family, somebody is talking about some good quick recipes for food for the family, or where can you go with the family without many people around, and many things, and that's a good opportunity for me to just see what's going on and how the people are feeling, and have a chat with them.
Okay, super. And that's, of course, with the office itself. Another question that came in was, how is this, for example, maybe if you extend it to other teams, other offices, maybe the financial department, the groups of researchers, maybe the faculty level, are you able to stay in touch with them, or is this much more difficult?
It's more formal keeping in touch when people have questions or requests or something work relating, then they of course contact us, but we don't have these kinds of meetings with other administrative units, but we could have, of course. That's a good idea, but I think that in a way we have now stayed in our own homes, in a way our unit is here and that's there, and then we just communicate when we have a need to it, but no common joint coffee breaks.
Yeah. Do any of the panelists have any ideas of or implementing anything to stay in touch? Of course, you're going to mail people, you're collaborating with people on specific things, but to specifically stay in touch with different departments or different people that you work with a lot, different groups of researchers? Or any ideas how to do that?
I mean, for us, we tend to do that as we would currently do that because we have a distributed campus anyway. Quite often, you're just doing normally telephone calls. It would have been until now, but more video calls and email groups and things. It's just that those personal sort of, I'll meet you in the coffee bar and have a talk. So you're just doing the equivalent of that. So you're trying to work in the same way, but just being restricted by this sort of thing. So I don't think we're doing anything particularly special or new, other than it seems to be that I meet more people on Zoom meetings and Microsoft Teams meetings, and one great thing is their name comes up, because I'm terrible if you're in a big meeting with remembering I've only met this person once before and which person was it. So there is an upside, right?
Yeah, absolutely. With that, I'll give the word to Maryam to also give her thoughts and any questions she had following the presentations. And Maryam, you're still muted.
I make the same mistake every time. I haven't learned it yet. No, I totally agree. It seems like even though we are in different countries, we are still living the same lives. It's many similarities, and that goes for the life of people. I guess different countries, yet same people. Same flesh and blood. I guess. No, I think many things has been said already, and we are passing the time. I don't know if people want to leave already, but thank you for organizing this. This was fantastic. It was really good.
Nick, now you're muted.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, Simon, please come in. Yeah.
One question that I saw, which we haven't addressed, which is anything going to come from this? Because I've heard lots of very similar, but also slightly different things. And I was wondering whether it might be something that EARMA wanted to do more widely, which is best practice on, or good practice, or practice on working in this sort of environment and developing some sort of resource. And I may have just given you a job there, Nick/Niall, so sorry.
No worries, no worries. Actually, an article was in the previous newsletter, not the one that was launched yesterday, but the one before, on working from home and working remotely. And we are thinking this is a first wave of digital sessions. We're seeing how people like it, how many people attend, how we put it on. So certainly going forward, I think everybody agrees that webinars would be webinars and the like. Online presence is becoming more important, and we're also moving in that direction and actually thinking about just that session on how to work remotely, possibly launching it in May or June. But having said that, we're looking at what we will currently do this week and next week, evaluating and seeing what comes out of that. I want to link in shortly to what Maryam was saying there also about we're speaking, but really a lot of the things in different countries, but a lot of the things are the same. I think that's also the lifeblood of EARMA, what we're trying to achieve. And I hear people often commenting indeed also that they found really more similarities and a very sort of interesting cases with other universities from other countries, where in their university context, there are in some cases the big ones and the ones that might be technical or technological universities that are different from theirs, and so on. While they found similar sites, similar operating, because we all know no university, no two universities are working in the same way, but a similar operating university across Europe. And I think that's a large part of the value of EARMA, and that's what we're always trying to propagate and trying to see, like here, that we bring best practice examples to the table, and really the people speaking, and it not being sort of a taught sort of course or definitive vision of what research management and administration is. I'm going to see if we have some more questions that we can answer. We'll continue the stream for a moment.
Maybe Nick, I saw a question that I could answer. It's managing colleagues with small kids. It's your case. That's how you can do that. I think my daughter is 10 years old. It's easier to manage her because she has autonomy. I think I have colleagues with very, very small kids. It's not easy, but he tried to manage with his wife, and then he started very early in the morning. I think you need to accept, be very flexible and accept the different way to work. My colleagues start very, very early in the morning, maybe stop at 4 o'clock, stop a little early for the lunchtime. Maybe I have lunch later than when you plan also meetings with colleagues. So you need to adapt and ask if they are available. You can understand that they can have some problem with kids. Maybe we are also more human. You see also a face that you never saw from your colleagues, because you sometimes we take time to talk about the family, but not a lot in the office. We have never time. And then maybe just the colleagues sitting in the same rooms. But now it's an opportunity also to understand the problem of each other's, and we need to take care of every aspect. That it's very important for us as manager of an office. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to answer two more questions reasonably concisely, and I leave it to the panelists who want to respond to this. One from Astrid Fichtel from Norway. Have your university been systematic in performing risk assessment of the different aspects of the situation and proposing corrective action? I see Maryam nodding, so I move it to her.
Yes, we have, and I think one of the things that they have looked at is the quality of examinations when you do remote examinations. So that was one of the things that came up quite highly in the risk assessment. But the risk assessment is being updated. I don't think there was anything in research part. It was mainly education part that was affected, but we have done that.
Okay, super. Anybody else who wants to come in? No. Okay, then we move to
Sorry, just a question,
yeah.
because I have to do also the evaluation of my team in this period, because we receive now in the next months our a bonus. Then it's also new for me to evaluate the people from here, but it's also all the professors moved the way in which they evaluate the people, also the exam. It's the same for the schools here in Italy. The final exam for the schools will be only online, and change completely the regulations. My daughter also did the examination here from home. That I think I don't want to repeat me, but we need absolutely to understand the different way to adapt each situation. It was not easy. We have 45,000 students also to manage them online, and to do some mathematical examination online. It's not easy also, but I think professors, everybody try to do the best, and the students, the people, they understand immediately. They appreciate a lot. I think everybody try to appreciate the effort for everybody, I think.
Thank you. We'll be going with the last question that is very practical from Ellen Schenk from Rotterdam. A very practical question. How are you dealing with Marie Skłodowska-Curie ITN fellowships? ESR, so early stage researchers are at home, cannot do their research and are missing local PhD training, etc. Fellowships may be extended, but who pays for the extra costs? Anybody who wants to tackle that difficult one? I think Maryam said a little bit about it at some point, but anybody know the answer to that?
I try to give, yeah, no, sorry. First Maryam and Simon. I'm
Simon, do you want to go on?
I was just going to say no.
So I can say a little bit about that. So all the PhD students in Sweden are hired. So they receive salaries from Sweden, from the university, even if they are not paid externally by external funding. I think the university will pay for their salary in Sweden, but I know that's a problem. We don't know basically. What we say is we deal with it right now. We cannot leave people not receiving salaries in Sweden, I guess.
Yes, it's a very, very difficult situation. I don't know myself, but I think the Commission will have some flexibility where it is possible. Of course, we all know that grants cannot be there cannot be extra money added to a grant. So that will be the difficult situation we will all be facing. It's probably quite unclear, and we'll have to enter a dialogue going forward to see how to fix that. And in the meanwhile, indeed, I think it's the university's responsibility also to take care of its people. With that, I see people nodding but not coming in to say anything further on that. I think we can close the session here. I want to thank the panelists. I want to thank everybody who's worked on this, especially Niall, who is our new communications officer since a couple of months, who's really put in a big effort. You'll be seeing him in all of the digital sessions. These are 8 digital sessions coming up. I highlight again one specifically for standing committees, where we try to make sure that we as EARMA also stay in touch, and the final one with Anna Panagopoulos from DGRTD. So I hope you've enjoyed this session. This is also for us a bit of a trial. We're trying to put up as nice as possible a program. We have the session today, we have one tomorrow at 10, and next week we will be having mainly sessions that were scheduled to be to take place at the conference, which would have been next week, which would have been great and really the highlight, I think, of what we have ever done in EARMA. We were working on it so much. It's been moved to September now. We're monitoring the situation, but we hope that we can offer you as much next week as possible, seeing the circumstances, and as much in the future going forward. So with that, I thank everybody and have a lovely day. Keep a positive outlook on the situation. I think we are problem solvers. We're often people with a lot of soft skills, so use those also for your work, but for your family, to all come out of this situation stronger. And I hope to see you tomorrow or in any of the other digital sessions at the conference or in the future. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a nice day.